How's it going, everybody? Today I'm going to be finally talking about Tales of the Underworld, the third series in this Tales of the series by Star Wars. I watched Tales of the Underworld last year when it came out, and a lot of stuff happened last year. Couldn't make a video about it. Finally catching up with some of the things that I watched forever ago. So this is one of them. So Tales of the Underworld. Where to begin with Tales of the Underworld? I think that Tales of the Underworld is probably the second best Tales of series. I still think that I would give the edge to Tales of the Jedi just because of how much I love the Dooku story in that show. But I would definitely put Tales of the Underworld above Tales of the Empire. I didn't think Tales of the Empire was bad by any means. A lot of people did. I enjoyed Tales of the Empire. I thought it was good. But I think that Tales of the Jedi is great, and there's wiggle room in there to fit, things that are slightly better than just good or slightly below great. So I think that's where Tales of the Underworld ends up landing. I guess I'll just begin with the Ventress arc in that show because it is the first one, and it's also, to me, the lesser of the two arcs. So let's just start with the Ventress arc. I had a big problem with them bringing Ventress back in The Bad Batch because while I haven't read it, I know there is a novel where Ventress and Quinlan Vos are together and all that, and she dies in that novel. And so I'm glad that we brought her back in this show and gave her her own arc, but we also reincorporated that story. We got Quinlan Vos. We got that sort of recanonized in a way that works, because I think that The Bad Batch, what bothered me about that is that they brought her back for one episode and kind of just ruined a story that a lot of people seem to love. And so I'm glad that we've sort of incorporated that into this to where both can be true, both can happen and just be canon together. And so now I think that it's worth having her back. My issue with her now, though, is that she still died in that story. So I have a problem with her coming back to life, because even though we got her for these 3 episodes in this show, and they were good episodes, I just feel like we have too many people still alive during the Imperial era. I feel like we're just continuing that trend that people have an issue with, where there's too many survivors, there's too many Order 66 survivors. Had Ventress been alive during that time, she would have been marked for Order 66, the same as Darth Maul was. And so we've got just so many people floating around that it just feels like it's too much. It feels like by the time A New Hope comes around and we're talking about the last of the Jedi and all that, it feels like that's not true anymore. It just feels like that's a certain point of view. That being said, Ventress is sneakily one of the higher end characters for me. One of the characters that I've grown to love in a way that's kind of strange, because she'll never come to mind with my favorite characters. You ask me who my favorite character is in this or that, the other, Ventress is not the person I'll say, but I still have this weird attachment to Ventress, and I think it's because I grew up watching the Clone Wars, and of course she's one of the big bads in the first part of that show. I remember I started watching the Clone Wars as it aired when season 3 came out, so she was still very prominent at that time, and so I think she just grew on me a lot, and I just didn't realize until time passed. And another reason why I've really grown to love Ventress's character is that over the years she's had one of the better bad guy to good guy arcs in all of Star Wars. Who can you even name that has a better bad guy to good guy arc in Star Wars? Agent Kallus, of course, is a great one, but I feel like we get to see more of Ventress's actually unfold. Kallus's is a little bit more off-screen, and so that's something I really enjoy. I really enjoy a bad guy to good guy character arc when it makes sense and when you get to see it unfold over a span of time. That's something that's really made me care about her character a lot. And so my feelings about Ventress's story in this show are kind of mixed, because on the one hand, I want more Ventress content. I like her character. I enjoy her character. I want to see more of her. But on the other hand, it feels like we've gone through most of what should happen with her character already, and that probably should have just culminated in her death, and she should have probably stayed dead. And so now we're kind of in this phase where she's back, but is the story we're telling with her worth bringing her back from the dead? Because from what I understand, it was a very good story that led up to her death, and her death was just that. It was the end of her character. And so I feel like we've brought her back, and I've enjoyed what we've gotten with her, but is it worth undoing her death? There's too many instances, just in media in general, of bringing characters back that did not need to come back. In Star Wars, it's getting worse, as we know, with somehow Palpatine returned, etc. There are other examples. And so I just feel like, of all the characters who have come back to life, in a sense or literally, Darth Maul was done better. You know, of course there are ones that were worse, like Sidious, but I feel like we're doing too much sometimes. We're doing it too often. As far as her episodes in this show go, I enjoyed them. I thought they were good. I think that they're kind of overshadowed by how good the Cad Bane arc is in this show, to be honest. As much as I did enjoy the Ventress episodes, I think the Cad Bane episodes were just better. But I think that the Ventress episodes do have their merits. I really did enjoy the fight in the first episode with that one Inquisitor. I'm not sure what designation that Inquisitor is, but I thought that was a good fight. I do have my issues with that fight though. I don't think that an Inquisitor should be able to best Ventress as easily as he did, because Ventress was trained by Dooku, and so it just doesn't really make sense to me. I get she's been out of the game for a while, and maybe she lost her fire and she lost some of her power as she transitioned back into the light side of the Force, because all that hate and rage is kind of gone from her, at least for the most part. And so you'd think that that would be kind of just a nerf as it goes. But I don't know, I still think that all that training has to count for something, and to be bested by Inquisitors, which, I mean, at the very best, Inquisitors were just random Jedi. And in other cases, they were Padawans who were kind of inducted in. So I don't know if an Inquisitor should have been able to give her the work like he did. And some people might say I'm just reading too much into it, or I'm expecting too much out of her, or this or that. But in Tales of the Jedi, we saw Ahsoka just absolutely mop up that one Inquisitor. And so that's kind of the standard. And at this point in the timeline, you could say that Ahsoka's more powerful than Ventress, but still, I feel like Kanan and Ezra held their own against the Inquisitors better than Ventress did, and Ventress is by far better trained and more powerful than either one of them are alone, at least. And so I just feel like it's kind of disrespectful to Ventress a little bit. And this might just be me, but another issue I have with the Ventress story is, honestly, Lyko is kind of annoying. Lyko's the name of the Jedi Padawan, right? Am I remembering that correctly? He kind of bothered me. He was a little bit too chatty. And I get that was kind of the point. She was telling him to shut up a lot, and she was asking him to be quiet a lot. But he got on my nerves too. And normally that doesn't happen. Normally I'm just like, whatever, it's part of the story. He was irking me a bit. I did enjoy getting to see Latrazi and C-21 Highslinger again. It was nice to see them, some familiar faces from the Clone Wars. And for the first time, they were our antagonists in that part of the story, and so I thought that was interesting. Something I forgot to mention about the Ventress resurrection part of the story was that when she was dead and she was speaking to Mother Talzin, she was given a choice to either remain in that realm with her sisters, or to return to the land of the living, but sacrifice her heart's desire. And at first, when I first watched it, I thought that meant maybe she could never just be with Quinlan again. But I'm starting to think that since there was definitely a time skip between when she was watching them walk away and when she actually came back to life, I'm wondering if she wasn't actually resurrected until Quinlan Vos died. Because that's really never explained in this show. I don't think anything has come out since to further that at any point. And so it's kind of interesting to think about, because we know that Quinlan Vos lives long enough to form the path. We know that the path still exists in Kenobi, but we don't know that Quinlan Vos is still alive in Kenobi. So it's possible that she did not become resurrected until Quinlan Vos had died, and therefore she could never be with him, sacrificing her heart's desire. And that's not really based on anything that they've come out and said, but that's kind of my headcanon as to what that has come to mean. Though there are different interpretations, I suppose, of what that could mean. Overall, I did enjoy the Ventress arc. It's not my favorite of all the tales, but I did enjoy it. And honestly, I'm more curious to see what they do with Ventress's character in the future. I don't know if this is the last we'll see of her. I really hope not, because if resurrecting her means that we get one episode of Bad Batch with her, and then this story in Tales of the Underworld, I will be a little bit let down. And don't get me wrong, I'm glad to have more Ventress content, but I still do think that if we're going to have her live, at least through part of the Empire, we should do more with her character. I feel like there's room to expand, and I'm honestly curious to see what becomes of her. Now, as far as the Cad Bane arc goes in this show, for me, the Cad Bane arc is probably the best or second best tale in the Tales series. It's either first or second only to the Dooku arc for me. I really enjoyed what we got from Cad Bane. I think that Cad Bane's character has always been one-dimensional, but everyone loves his character. They love his style, they love everything about him, really. But I'm glad to see some depth to this character, albeit not a tremendous amount of depth, but we do get to see his origin, we get to see where he comes from, we get to see how he becomes the man we see in Clone Wars, and I really just enjoyed the expansion of that character. I'm glad to get to see more of him, to flesh him out a bit, and I was not expecting this tale in particular to be one of the best, because we have characters who are already decently fleshed out. Ventress, we knew more about than Cad Bane. We knew more about Dooku than Cad Bane, Ahsoka than Cad Bane, etc. But I think that it's a testament to the Star Wars storytelling ability that we can take this character who really just came out of nowhere, just popped up in Clone Wars Season 2, courtesy of Dave Filoni and George Lucas, and has slowly become a fan favorite. And this story we get about Cad Bane and Tales of the Underworld really just lets you see this character in a new light, because we get to learn about his being an orphan, and we get to get some information about him. We get his real name. We get the origin of his style, even though that's not explicitly stated. We get to learn about how he becomes an outlaw, and we get to learn about his mentor, and we get to learn about the crew that he ran with originally. And with his being an orphan and living on the streets of a world that is struggling to keep law and order, it makes sense that Colby, young Cad Bane, would fall into a life of crime. And I think that that story was just really well done. And it's made even better by the fact that he's got his best friend with him as a child, who's also an orphan and lives on the street with him, and gets into all sorts of trouble with them. And in this story, Nero is just as an intriguing character as Cad Bane is, because he's the opposite side of the same coin. They're both in the same place together, they both are a product of circumstance, but one falls into the light and one falls into the darkness. Both are what could have been of the other. Cad Bane could have ended up a lawman on his world and brought peace and order, and Nero could have been the one that fell into a life of crime instead of joining law enforcement. The only thing that stopped them from being each other is that their personalities were a little bit different, and the circumstances of that one night when they went to work for the outlaw. And so it's really interesting to see this sort of story of best friends that are foils for one another. They're alike in almost every way, and it really goes to show that anyone is capable of rising above their circumstance or falling victim to it. Aside from the story itself, I really enjoyed the Western feel that this arc had. I thought it really added to the mood, the music for it was great, and that really just enhanced the experience and enhanced my enjoyment of it. Because again, it's a side of Star Wars that we don't really get. The only Western feel that is in Star Wars other than this arc is probably the Cobb Vanth stuff that we get in The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett. I'm struggling to think of anything else that's specifically a Western feeling in Star Wars. Overall, I really did enjoy Tales of the Underworld, and I think that these were two great choices for characters to feature in this style of show. Now I'm really just curious to see who we're gonna get in the next Tales of series, just because I imagine that we will be getting one. We've already gotten 3 so far, and we've featured some pretty good characters, and I've liked what we've gotten so far. I'm just wondering what direction they'll take it in next. We've already gotten Empire, Jedi, and Underworld. I'm not really sure where we go from here, but I'm excited for it either way. But that's all I've really got to say about Tales of the Underworld. I did enjoy this show. What did you think of it? Let me know down in the comments below. If you want to help me out here on YouTube, liking this video, commenting on this video, subscribing to the channel, checking out some of my other videos, all those things help me grow the YouTube channel, which I'm still trying to do. If you want to check me out elsewhere, I'm on Twitch, I'm on Instagram. Those should be linked in the description of this video if YouTube works the way it's supposed to work. But yeah, until next time, bye.